Welcome back to the channel, Adventures Through Climate Change with your host, Trevor. Yep, that's me. We take an armchair approach, reading articles, watching videos, primarily watching videos because then I don't have to read a bunch of stuff. And it's not that I'm not good at reading. It's just I don't know. Like there's some people, when they pronounce certain things, they just know how to pronounce and use the periods and just to really accentuate the way they read. And I don't have that excitement because it does produce some excitement. Anyways, today, and you notice I just had the screen popped up because I wanted you to kind of take a look. We are looking at the Carrington event. Yes, the Carrington event. And I know what you're thinking. Solar flares is not really climate change. Yes, it is. Okay, because we spend trillions of dollars on what we consider climate change, and a lot of it is Earth, natural Earth cycles, when I think we should be worried more about the extinction events of the past or whatever that we think happens, giant meteors and this type of thing. I mean, this happened in the 1800s something. It's been a while since I had heard about it. I just was somebody actually had mentioned it, and I can't remember if it was a comment or sent me something about it. But and I was like, that's a good one. Solar flares is a good one because we narrowly missed one in 2012, and that could have been pretty detrimental from what I heard. I don't know a ton about it, but I know when it happened back in the 1800s, there was like aurora borealis all over. The skies looked all weird in different areas. Actually, you know what? I don't know even why I'm talking about it. This is fascinating horror. I'm already subscribed. I liked it. It's the Carrington event, a short documentary. So it's like, 13 and a half minutes. Let's get into it.
This video is sponsored by the Magnus Archives.
Thank you, Magnus. This was a couple years ago, so I think it was like 2.5 years ago movie.
On the night of the 28th of August, 1859, skies around the world lit up with spectacular displays of light. In some places, the heavens glowed red, as though reflecting a massive wildfire. Elsewhere, broad bands of white light were seen dancing across the night sky. For almost a week, skies around the world glowed so brightly that it was possible to read a newspaper at midnight. Everywhere, people gathered and gazed upwards, terrified and awestruck in equal measure.
I bet that was scary.
The vast majority had no idea what they were witnessing and could only assume that it was a portent of the end of the world.
Telegraphs only what you
Reports exist from many different countries of the strange phenomena that could be seen during the week which followed the 28th of August, 1859. In Boston, the sky glowed red to such a degree that many who witnessed it believed that there was a fire burning over the horizon.
That's crazy.
At least until the red transmuted to a vivid green. Elsewhere, witnesses reported seeing columns of light moving across the sky, and spoke of multicoloured rays and arches forming, coalescing and disintegrating. One account in the San Francisco Herald ran as follows. The whole sky appeared to undulate, something like a field of grain in a high wind. The waters of the bay reflected the brilliant hues of the aurora. Nothing could exceed the grandeur and beauty of the sight. The effect was almost bewildering, and was witnessed with mingled feelings of awe and delight by thousands.
They were scared though.
Such was the brightness of these lights that many people rose from their beds, thinking that dawn had arrived. A group of masons in South Carolina got up and started work on a job site before realizing that it was still the middle of the night and going back home. In Virginia, a railroad conductor, angered by the sound of larks singing as though it was morning, when in fact it was only just 1 a.m., got out his pistol and shot 3 birds dead so that he could get back to sleep.
Is that in the papers or something?
At the same time, in Ohio, The sight of the night sky illuminated like a Christmas tree proved too much for one 16-year-old girl. Over the course of the week-long event, she became increasingly agitated, believing that the strange lights heralded the end of the world. She was ultimately committed to an insane asylum.
But was she right? No, because
at the same time as the Heavenly Light Show was sending the general population into a frenzy of fear and wonder, telegraph operators around the world were also experiencing bizarre and unexpected difficulties. Something was wrong with their equipment. In some places, telegraph operators received electric shocks and burns when they touched their telegraph keys, or witnessed sparks and arcing from telegraph wires. Elsewhere, operators discovered, much to their surprise, that they could unhook their batteries and still continue to transmit messages.
That's super interesting.
Operators on the American telegraph line between Boston and Portland, after briefly marvelling that they could work without batteries, went about their business sending the messages of the day as normal, batteries disconnected. Newspapers during the week of the event were dominated by accounts of the lights in the sky and the disruption of the telegraph system. In some cases, this was all that could be printed, since interruption of telegraph services meant that no news dispatches from the wider world had come in.
You get used to that stuff.
All in all, these events defied explanation, leaving many to speculate that they were signs of the coming apocalypse.
Sure.
The actual explanation was rather less catastrophic, and would be uncovered by the report of a British amateur astronomer, Richard Carrington. On the 1st of September, 1859, he was in his private observatory on his estate just outside London, busily monitoring sunspots. Sunspots are dark patches often seen on the surface of the sun, and Carrington had devoted a great deal of time to tracking their movements, as he believed that their importance was only just beginning to be understood. While he was busy with his work, Carrington witnessed something unusual. Two patches of intense white light appeared on the surface of the sun, flared briefly and then disappeared. Intrigued, Carrington made a drawing to capture his observations, something he would later send to the Royal Astronomical Society as part of a complete report. Although he didn't know it at the time, Carrington had just witnessed two in a series of solar flares. Solar flares are violent events on the surface of the sun, which are almost always accompanied by the ejection of a huge quantity of energetic particles.
Messes with our...
Of course, the sun constantly emits a solar wind of such particles. Usually, we are completely protected from these by the Earth's own magnetic field. This field stops radiation from the solar wind from harming us, and prevents it from degrading the atmosphere. Only a tiny amount of the material delivered by solar winds can penetrate our atmosphere.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I know I should just go through with the videos, but this reminds me of like when they talk about like the poles swapping and why it would be big. And I could be wrong about this, so go ahead and correct me. But if the poles happen to switch, then all of a sudden our electromagnetic field, which now repels the sun stuff, would actually be accepting it, actually push it all through and help push it away and go right through. I mean, and it would be radiation like we've never seen before, just ripping us apart. From my understanding, that's what the polar swap thing is. And right now, like what they're talking about, what happens with a solar flare is you get that flare that could potentially go right through the earth and rip the fibers of the electromagnetic field across it and off of it, in which case wherever that direct flare is going is just getting all sorts of radiation. From my understanding, let's get into it.
Because of the orientation of the Earth's magnetic field, this is most likely to happen at the north and south poles, something which results in the phenomenon we know as aurora borealis, or the northern lights. During solar flares, the sun releases much more material than usual, a huge belch of magnetized plasma. When this is directed towards the Earth, Aurora Borealis becomes visible far beyond the poles. The solar flares witnessed by Carrington had just sent another massive dose of magnetized plasma on its way towards Earth. That evening, the terrifying and awe-inspiring lights in the sky would be seen again around the world. It would be some time, of course, before Carrington's report allowed the flares and the bizarre activity in the skies to be linked. When they finally were, it was decided that the event should be named in his honour, the Carrington event. Carrington would have every reason to be pleased to be remembered in such a way. After all, the Carrington event made headlines around the world, and while it caused some disruption, it was far from deadly. At the time, it must have seemed a bizarre but momentous scientific discovery, not something that would pose any real danger to the world at large. The significance of the Carrington event, however, should not be missed. In 1859, electrical technology was relatively basic, with the telegraph system the only piece of technology in widespread use that was reliant on electrical power. Since then, much more of the world's infrastructure has come to be dependent on electricity. Which begs the question, what would happen should a Carrington-level event occur today?
Wipe out the grid?
Unlike in 1859, it's fairly likely that we'd have some warning when a geomagnetic storm might affect the Earth. Systems currently in place should allow us at least one full day to prepare.
Really?
And the long-term effects of the event would be very much dependent on that preparation. A quick and coordinated response would involve taking any systems that might be damaged by the event offline for its duration. In this best-case scenario, then, a Carrington-level event would mean a week of severe disruption the world over, but only a week. On the other hand, there is the worst-case scenario wherein we fail to prepare, or where we don't have sufficient warning of an incoming Carrington-level event. This would result in some of the most extensive blackouts ever seen, a simultaneous loss of power, loss of communications, and the failure of most modern technology. Planes would be grounded, hospitals left in the dark, traffic control in cities absent. Card-based transactions would be impossible. Refrigeration would fail. Banking services would be offline. Supply chains would crumble. The world at large could be thrown back hundreds of years in terms of technology. And this wouldn't necessarily be just for the duration of the event.
I mean, you think about it back in like the 1859 or whatever, when that last major event happened, they just used money, I mean, or gold or things of value. You know, nowadays, I mean, they're trying to go towards like a crypto US currency. I mean, I can't tell you what a bad idea that is for so many reasons. I don't want to get into that. However, when we just think of it in this landscape of the conversation, it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary, right? So let's let them finish. But I just think that being so reliant, and I think the next calculated event that could possibly happen is 2025. And we don't know if it'll end up facing us or not, from my understanding. And maybe he'll talk about this, maybe he won't. I don't know.
If power grids were not taken offline to protect them before the event, permanent damage could be caused. Given the scale of some power grids, experts estimate that it could take as long as 10 years to completely recover from a worst-case scenario Carrington-level event. Finally, it should also be stressed that it really isn't a question of if, but when.
But when?
Estimates vary, but it is thought by many that a Carrington-level event might strike the Earth, on average, once every 150 years. At the time of recording, it has been more than 160 years since the Carrington event. We are, by some measures, overdue.
Regent Seven Seas
Okay,
Cruises
but did they have somebody
delivers
from
an unrivaled
150 years
experience.
before 1950 or 1859? So do they have another event?
If you enjoyed this, or any of my stories, you'll almost
Somebody wrote down
certainly
something.
enjoy the Magnus Archives, a horror fiction podcast that was kind enough to sponsor today's video.
Check out all this stuff. I don't want to waste too much of your time on my channel because this is an unedited version of nothing. I mean, I guess we just watch a bunch of other people's stuff. So if you like their stuff, like it. I mean, go like it. The link's always in the description to their video. If you don't want to give me a like because you think I'm pirating, that's fine. I really don't. I don't really care because of that. What I'm just trying to do is bring a community together. What did I think about this? I think it's something we should be concerned about. I think it'd be major. I think it'd be catastrophic for our society to have to go through this. And I think it's coming sooner than later. This type of stuff, like this is when we go through the Kuiper Belt, July and December. It should always be somewhat of a concern. I feel like we should always have something ready to combat whatever possibly might be coming in, because I look, that's real threats, right? Real threats. Okay, so just my thoughts. I like to get people thinking about outside the box, just not just the standard climate change talk. So with that being said, I appreciate each and every one of you. If I did earn your subscription, thank you. Thanks for the likes. Please comment. Let me know what you're thinking, what I should watch, what I should educate myself about, what I might agree or disagree with. And you know what? This is a great channel for discussion. So be open. I mean, tell me what you think, and I hope to catch you on the next video.